Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Let's welcome Shawn to the stage.
Very difficult though. Did you like it?
Yeah, it was amazing. It was alright.
Yeah. Bit long.
I just can't help but be sarcastic.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you, Shawn. Thank you for sharing some of your journey with us. Now, we know that was the first time you've seen this film. Would you mind just sharing with us, your response to the film?
I mean, I didn't really know what to expect, obviously. I had seen a few clips, I think it was like years ago though, wasn't it? I mean, obviously I can't remember. But yeah, I just, I don't know. I'm actually lost for words because obviously having you guys with me, I think you can agree that not saying I wasn't the easiest to work with, but sometimes it was hard because you'd ask me questions and I'd be like, what? I don't know how to answer that, or I didn't know how to be on camera at the start. And but no, you did an amazing job, so thank you so much, because I know a lot of people would have liked to victimise me in a certain way, and I feel like that's why I didn't want to do it with anybody else. So when obviously my sister and I had the conversation about you guys filming, I think I felt safe in a way because you didn't have any like bad intentions or anything like that, so I was very comfortable to work with you guys.
Likewise,
So,
thank you.
Thank you.
How did you feel this evening with your friends and family watching this story back?
It's very surreal. I'm just this regular girl from Leicester. I'm Leicester. My accent. Oh my god!
Yeah, we couldn't
It's
dub it
crazy.
out. I don't have the budget for that.
My mum always used to say, "Just make sure you say your L's," and I'm like, "Well, you made me grow up in Newport, so what do you expect?" But no. Having all my family and friends here, it's really, really special. Because like the guy said, we didn't know when it was going to be shown or where it was going to be shown. So the fact that it's here in Leicester with all my loved ones is, it's really special.
It's a very emotional film. That's actually the third time I've seen it. And I always cry during that film. And it's also very encouraging and life-affirming. So thank you for that. Before we ask any more questions, we haven't got a mic for the audience, but could one or two people just share their response with the film now? Just put your hand up and you'll have to speak in a loud voice. Who would like to just share a little bit? Yes.
Watching that film just shows that there's courage, hope and strength in everyone, no matter who you are, where you're from, and whatever you face, with the right people, the right support, you can come over it.
Thank you very much. Someone else, come on. Yes.
I really think that she's so incredible, and just to see what she's been through, and what she is now, how much she does for everyone around her, just let alone how much she just deals with personally. I don't think there's anyone that could do it how she does it.
I love you.
I also wanted to express how well you as filmmakers have put together the interviews, because you didn't just interview those who were immediately involved in transactions, but also the attorneys and those from the transport union and others, which I thought really made the documentary really allowed us to give a holistic narrative.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there one more person?
Oh, two.
Yes, please.
Just like to thank you for sharing your story with us. Obviously, like a shock to you. But because you have stayed positive, it's not phased your life of the outcome. You still got married, you still have your daughter, and just really to say you're a wonderful family.
Oh.
And I'm glad
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. There'll be plenty more opportunity for you to say something and ask some questions in a moment. But Shawn, let me just ask you one more thing. I'll quote you. You don't know how strong you are until strength is your only choice. That was a wonderful thing you said in the film. Could you unpack that a little bit more for us?
Of course. I said this not long ago on a podcast that I did, that I feel like when something happens to you, you go into a different realm, and I think that a lot of people they always say to me, God, I can never do what you have done or what you have continued to do, but I genuinely think you only tap into a certain amount of your brain. When you're pushed to your limit, that's when you unravel more of yourself and what you're capable of. So you'd be surprised at what you can go through and what you can deal with. You just haven't ever thought, like, you're never going to be in that situation, but when you put in it, your brain and your body, your mind, your literally every single aspect of you will fight. So that's what I mean by that.
Thank you. Would you like to say something about the Shawn Green Foundation?
Yes, well, actually, I mean, can I tell you this right now? Yeah, well, why not?
Exclusive.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's going to be changing. It's completely changing. We'll still fund amputees to receive specialist care, but we're going to be doing it with a company called Levitate. So if you've seen me on a running blade, you'll know that I've been practicing, well, trying to anyway, on this running blade. And we're now going to be funding people, like amputees, to get these blades, because I don't know if you know, but I mean, if you're born with an amputation, from the age, up until the age of 18, that's when your funding for any sort of sporting blade will stop. So after that, you're on your own. So if, anyone's born with an amputation and they're really into sports, they then have to fund that themselves. But I'm now going to be working with a company, and they're in Denmark, and they are amazing. So we're going to be teaming up together to help people get back into sport. So that's the new spin on it.
Let's come to you, Matt.
Oh,
Justice.
justice.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's quite simple. I think you when you're brought up, when you're a child, you taught right from wrong. And somewhere along the way, when people become grown-ups and they get in positions of power, they seem to not know the difference between right and wrong. And to me, this is very simple. Everybody you tell the story to, it's like, oh, there's a traffic accident. Oh, well, no, because the taxi wasn't on the road and Shawn wasn't running across the street. It was on a pavement or a sidewalk. And so everybody's like, well, why is the taxi there and all that kind of thing. We shouldn't be there, should it? That's the right and the wrong. But then lawyers and legals, they like to try and make things really, really complicated, muddy the waters a little bit, because then the average layman person, or people like us that don't know about the law, kind of get lost in it. But really, I think there's right and wrong here. There's good and evil. There's right and wrong. And no, there was no justice. I think. Hopefully we show in the film. Are we being even-handed? Well, we just gave people enough rope to hang themselves, really. We just kept the camera rolling. Obviously Wayne interjects, and you can hear him interjecting, so that we can kind of like, oh, so what are you saying? You're saying this, you're saying that. But they all had their opportunity to put this right early on. And so a documentary allows you to kind of explore things when the news crews have to go off to the next story and Shawn's left on her own, dealing with her life. A documentary can go over a long period of time, cover many years, and you see Shawn change. That's why we gave her the video camera so she could do these video diaries. But we couldn't be there all the time. And Shawn, early on, was kind of like, she's very positive and put on this brave face, which is great. But then people think that everything's okay, everything's all right, and it wasn't all right. She'd got a lot of pain to go through. She needed to earn a living after she left university, or a lot of her dreams were taken away from her, or seemingly taken away from her. They were just postponed, as we've seen. It was just postponed for a longer period of time. So yeah,
I remember you starting work on this film, and you were very, very motivated with justice. When there was an injustice taking place, and you were hoping that.
Well, I think we're quite naive, and we thought that we could solve this crime by going over there. We'd interview everybody, we'd solve the crime. We're like, oh yeah, look, this actually happened, and overturn it. And then it suddenly became, well, not only is nobody interested in that, it's all kind of done and dusted, but there was much worse things happening. And Shawn was contacted. We were at Sheffield Doc Fest, was it a month ago, 3 weeks ago? The same things happened again. If you check the news out, 3 or 4 weeks ago, 2 people on the sidewalk in New York, hit by a taxi. They've lost limbs, a third person's injured. The taxi driver of that particular taxi got out, and it was so horrendous he fainted. And I think 23 people lifted the taxi off. So, although our film didn't come out as quickly as we thought it was, we might have thought this is now, is it irrelevant? No, it's still happening. Check the news, it's still happening. So you as an audience, you've come here to see the film, go out there and spread the news about the film so that more people watch it. It's playing on Saturday, it's playing on Sunday. But also, this isn't right, is it? Even if you just take the film aside, look at the news articles. What tends to happen is there's a big accident, there's a big splash, but then nobody asks what's happened to these people, and they're in hospitals. They've gone away to go to find a lawyer. They've got to try and piece the life together. No one's helping, and they go away on their own, and they have to learn how to walk again and all the other things. So, yeah.
I don't think you were naive, actually. I think you were very noble. I think there's a great tradition in documentary making for filmmakers using the form to pursue justice. And I think you did pursue justice, but ultimately it became an insurmountable task, didn't it? And then your motivation changed with this. Could you talk a little bit about that? How your motivation in telling the story changed?
Well, maybe Wayne could say a few words.
Yeah, I mean, Matt, we kind of realised once we started it, because we were unsure for a start exactly until we started doing interviews and stuff with Shawn, we were unsure where the court case was. We soon found out that it was kind of halfway through the civil case. There wasn't going to be a criminal case, so that was a bit of an education anyway. And then it became about trying to ask people to try and explain the injustice, like in layman's terms, but also to make it make sense. And that's why people like Fernando Mateo, the guy that heads up the taxi union, he is like something out of a. He's like a baddie in a drama or something. But you can just let him talk, and I would repeat things back to him that he'd said to me with some incredulity, and he would just repeat it again as in, yeah, that's what I said, and you can see it in the film. And so it became more about it. And like Matt said, it was giving them enough rope to hang themselves to a certain extent.
I hope we haven't put it out that everybody knew there's heroes and villains on that day, and we weren't out to say New York's terrible, America's terrible, those kind of thing. There's people in power, and there was people on the street. The plumber just went and helped save a life. The passing nurse, Dr. Oz comes down from his TV tower. All these people, jump in, and just like this accident that's happened recently, all these bystanders help. But then the kind of help goes away. So it's, New York can change. Anything can change. If laws can change, but you need to keep at it, like Dana Lerner, who said she's not going away. She's lost her son.
It's basically it's a cultural thing is the issue at the minute, and that's why it's more that was the thing that was insurmountable really, in the short to medium term. It's a cultural thing in America, but particularly in New York. The car is king. Like even when you've got the lights, as Dana Lerner said in that, her husband and the son, they were walking across with the lights. It's kind of irrelevant. Here, obviously, the pedestrian has always got the right of way. If a pedestrian just steps out, it's their right of way, just because it's common sense, because a car will run over a person.
And also, we seem to have this thing called driving without due care and attention. you know, you're taught how to drive, and you're in control of that vehicle. And you know, if you hit a pedestrian or any, you know, if a pedestrian steps out in front of you, you're supposed to slow down. You don't mow them over. So there's this doesn't seem to be this drive without due care and attention. If you drink driving over there, or you're taking drugs, but anything else, it seems an accident. And accidents just happen, don't they? You know, like knocking over. But you know, if I did that now, that's my fault. I just did that, didn't I? I've got to clear that up later. So you know,
You're talking about justice and injustice, and I know you started making a film about that. Bad guy, villains, villains,
Yeah.
and heroes.
Yeah.
And I think ultimately you actually made a film about overcoming adversity, didn't you? I think you know that.
well, you saw
you
saw an early cut of it, and I think you and Wayne both. We were going in one direction. I was wanted to talk about jaywalking and doing all this kind of stuff, and I was going really into the legal side of it because I just watched Making a Murderer and those kind of things on Netflix, and I thought, this is, you know, I can do this. I'm going to prove myself. And you guys said, look, it should be the Shawn Green story because we're going off on these tangents now, and you can't help all these other people. That we had other stories in there. We had a girl who was killed by 2 taxis. She was hit so hard on the crossing, just as she got she just got a job. She was crossing the road to go home to tell her mum, and she was hit so hard she was knocked on the other side of the road and ran over by another taxi. And it was witnessed, and we had that in the film, but we were going off on a tangent. And to make this something that you can relate to, it needs to be Shawn. So it needs to be Shawn, it needs to be the centre. You need to see more of Shawn's life to humanise it. We're humanising this big thing, massive New York. Could have been 50,000 people. It just happened, you know. Well, yeah, we make it down to one person. Everybody's a person. All those 50,000 people or whatever, they're all people. But you have to make them human. You have to show them, and not just a figure, not just a number. You have to make them into somebody you can relate to. And Shawn's very relatable.
Wayne, overcoming adversity. Unpack that for us a little bit.
Yeah, well, that, as you say, that's what it became, and Matt kind of alluded to it earlier. But one of the challenges, if you like, when we first started working with Shawn, she's brilliant to work with. Actually, I know we joke about it. She's sarcastic, but she never moaned, and she let us come round whenever we wanted to do the filming. The problem really was the opposite of that. The very first interview that I alluded to earlier on in the dance studio forms a lot of the stuff where Shawn talks about the crash. And I don't know whether you noticed, but if you watch it again, you'll kind of see she's actually really, really dispassionate when she talks about it, and which kind of worked for the film in that instance, because she manages to get through the story and she tells you, and she just gives you all these facts and she lays it out. But then as we filmed with her for a longer period of time, as she got used to us, her defences came down a little bit, and that's when you see her later on becoming more emotional and things. And it's not because we were like trying to make her cry and we wanted it to be really emotional. It wasn't that. It was that we knew from the reality of looking at her life that it wasn't perfect, and that she did have all these things to overcome, and it was getting her to tell us and put that on camera. That was the difficult thing, because it was always, as soon as Matt said, as soon as you press record, it's like, yeah, everything's great, it's brilliant. It's like, it's not, Shawn, you've just been telling us it's crap. So
it's like the cushion cover. The cushion cover was the big thing.
That was brilliant. Yeah.
You know, I could tell you about cushion covers.
And we just caught her that day and happened to be in a bad mood after she'd finished the shift. So that worked, but we had to keep going.
No cushion covers were harmed in the making of this film.
Hey Shawn, so you went into this project with these guys, you know. Tell us about your motivation and your expectation going through this film-making process. How was it working with them?
I mean, I didn't know what to expect, because, you know, to have people follow you around with the camera, I don't think that is a normal thing.
Although I saw you on TV in the ad break just the other day. It's become quite normal, isn't it?
That's my life now. But no, I thoroughly enjoyed working with you guys, and it was weird when we actually stopped filming. I don't know, it was just really nice, and like I said, you made me feel really comfortable. You didn't ever push any boundaries. If I didn't want to talk about anything, it was, you know, well, actually I think you would. Let's be honest. But no, I did really enjoy it, and I'm just really grateful that I don't think you guys realise how wait, I can do this. 1 minute. Wait. just how hard these guys have worked and how dedicated. Oh, okay, I'm just gonna cry.
We should have brought a load of hankies, shouldn't we? Put them around the van.
Because I just genuinely, I've never seen two people be so passionate about something and. Oh, for God's sake.
It's good though, isn't it? To get it, let it all out.
Well, yeah.
Why didn't you do this when you were filming it?
Thanks, I don't know where that went.
Yeah, but
no,
also it's-
no, honestly, you guys have been absolutely terrific, and I just couldn't have two better people to work on something so personal to me. Because
Thank you.
But also, you trusted us, and when we wanted to, I'm going to do it now. when lockdown hit, we were like, here we go. We had a German news crew came over. We were going to go to the Berlin Festival, and it was all great. And then that was February 2020, and then we were all March. Suddenly everything stopped, and we literally thought, well, this story's what we're going to do with it. It's going to, but you didn't give up. And you're still not giving up. So we were like, well, we've got to do it. By hook or by crook, we've got to do it. And you know, we got so much. Wayne talked on the phone for 90 minutes with somebody who was telling him why he wouldn't spend 70 minutes watching our film. That's the reality of a lot of it. Yeah, well, you know, he told me how busy he was. And you could have watched it while the time on the phone. But that's, you just keep, you know, it's not for us. It's too short. It's too long. You know, it's like, it's everything, but you just have to keep going because, you know, keep going, that's it, isn't it? Keep going is the secret to everything. And normally, you succeed just after you've failed, you know. It's normally when you're about to give up and you're about to go, I tell you what, I'm just going to go, all right, I'll give it one more try. And then that's normally when you win, isn't it? It's normally when something happens because you go back in and if you do give up, you're never going to know what's going to happen. So you just have to keep going, even if you look like an idiot, schlepping a film around. Well, who cares, you know?
Well done, you guys. Let's give the audience a chance to ask some questions. Who'd like to ask a question? Yes.
Hi, John Ellison here. Also, part-time filmmaker.
I feel your pain.
You probably might have recognised me during the bit with the.
You're on the camera. Holding the camera.
Yeah.
Yes, I do. Yeah.
Yeah, the fashion
I got your good side.
Yeah. Indeed. Yeah. You brought back some memories, I must admit. My question is, I know Shawn just said that there were times when you guys appeared when she didn't expect. Were there at any time during the production? Were there any times when some passers-by kind of interfered and were like, "Excuse me, would you mind not filming in that location, please?" Or
we had one. Can you remember the thing in New York? So the Families for Safe Streets. So we all met in a coffee bar before we were going into this thing at City Hall. Was basically they were going to stand and hold the photographs of their children that had died, and talk to the press. And filmmaking is you get a shot and then you run across the street and you get another shot. So we'd got these shots and we'd gone outside, and I'm there with the camera and Wayne's standing there with me, kind of protecting me, looking out, because we don't know what's going to go on. And this guy comes up to Wayne and said, "What are you doing?" And Wayne expressed, I'm making a film about people who've lost their lives in road
thinking
traffic
there was, there's definitely no downside to what I'm
No,
telling
he's
you.
going to go, "Oh, well done," and he's like, "No, what a lot of horse shit." And he just literally went into this thing and we're like, "What?"
Basically, how pedestrians are terrible and cars are great and pedestrians.
But we
cause
hadn't
all
even
these problems.
explained, and that was a real shock because we were like, "Wow."
But that speaks to what I was talking about the cultural difference.
But that was
I'm not saying everybody's like that, but
No,
there are a
but-
lot of people that are like
But
that.
that's a time I definitely remember where a member of the public got involved, and it was something blindsided because we didn't expect that reaction. We thought,
But no, most of the time we get ignored or we just tell them what we're doing. something else, something that's not as interesting as what we're actually doing in corporate videos.
Next question, please.
Oh, that was like
Who should we have?
from that.
Yes.
Question for Wayne. So, having a daughter of a similar age to Shawn when she had her accident, how did you feel when you were interviewing the driver?
Yeah, well, both me and Matt that day were were really, really angry the whole time we were filming him. It was we couldn't really believe that it was going to turn up. It took a lot of work to arrange the interview. We were absolutely amazed. First of all, just to track him down and find him.
Well, when you say we, Wayne did all that.
Well, yeah.
Wayne also tracked down the cyclist, and
Yeah,
he didn't want to be involved, but that was a feat in itself. It was literally like...
Yeah, that's a different issue. That guy's got mental problems, but so as the driver has. But anyway, we didn't think he was going to turn up. He changed the time like 3 times. We'd hired somebody, the researcher that we were working with had hired her friend's studio flat, so we only had it for a certain amount of time. He called me just before he was supposed to be there, and he wasn't coming. It went on like this, and we actually rolled. That's why there's 2 cameras on that interview, which we haven't really done throughout the rest of this film, and we just rolled and we waited, which is why we've got those shots of him signing the bit of paper and different bits, because we didn't know how long he was going to stay for, whether he was going to answer any questions. We had no idea really. He'd been a nightmare on the phone, so I didn't think he was going to turn up. So when he turned up, and we only had like 45 minutes or something with him. We didn't have very long because we'd run out of time at the location, and we knew he was going to go off. And so we just kept rolling, and we just kept asking him things, and it was just really, really. it made you angry. You got upset, but particularly because you didn't get anything back from him.
But
he's a narcissist.
But I think, bearing in mind, we don't do this. We're not investigative journalists for a living. Wayne doesn't do this every day, but Wayne does interview people. But there was some clever things where you were kind of winding him up, but only by being nice and saying things. But what was also strange at the time is I only had one light with me, and it was a beautiful, bright, sunny day, wasn't it, when you were interviewing him? And as he got more and more angry, clouds started passing by.
Yeah, it's true.
The room got
darker,
and he looked like he was under the spotlight. And I was thinking when I was filming this, like, it looks like we're stitching him up here. It looks like we're literally, putting him under the spotlight. But he was getting more and more angry because Wayne was just like saying, well, that's not really the case. And, we just wanted to roll as much as we could and put as much of it in there so that we, often people expect a voiceover in documentaries, and that's a quick way of doing it. But we didn't really want to put words in people's mouths. We didn't want to literally say, and then this happened, and frame the whole thing. We wanted everybody to say their own piece. And obviously we're juxtaposing things, we're putting light and shade together. But we wanted to give people enough airtime so it could be as even as possible with the people that we interviewed.
Yeah, and it was just, again, with him, it was... those interviews, as I say, it's 2 cameras, and compared to some of the other interviews, it is a bit baggier. We've left a bit more space, and that was on purpose, because what we didn't want people to think was that we'd stitched him up, because it's the stuff that he comes out with. You honestly can't believe that he sent it, and I wouldn't be surprised if someone had thought, well, yeah, but you've probably edited it like that to make him look bad. But that's why we left it like that. It's basically that's exactly how he is, and obviously there's other evidences in the film, like when he tried to contact Shawn, and when she went on Lorraine recently, he then actually decided he was going to put out a statement and whatever, and supposedly say I was sorry. So
it was a very interesting and revealing scene. Well done, great filmmaking there. But Shawn, how was it for you watching that back, seeing that man again? Could you say something about that?
I mean, I don't really feel anything towards him, and it's not because, obviously I despise him, but it's in a way that I don't need to be angry, and it's not going to heal me in any way. It's not going to bring my leg back. So he's actually nothing to me, and I don't know if that's worse than hating someone, because I just don't care about him. I don't know if that makes any sense, but I don't care.
Let's have another question from the audience, please. Yes.
I imagine going back to New York for the first time was really daunting for you. So how did you get the kind of courage to get back on that flight and kind of go back for the first time?
I mean, it was really difficult. I'm not gonna lie. I think I'd been though before we went. I actually went back. Obviously, the crash was in August of 2013, and I did deny. Yeah, I went.
But
Sorry,
you didn't
she's
go
like my
back to
brain.
but you didn't go back to the actual.
No.
In the city centre, yeah.
No. I was. I went to do the Dr. Oz show in December. There you go, December. But we just flew in, stayed in the hotel. I think we went to like a dinner place or something. Did we? No. Okay. Yeah,
It's like, guess who this is? Like, where did I go? Did I know it?
Anyway, cutting a long story short, I went with my sister just to do an interview, and then, but I didn't go anywhere. And even still, when we went,
Well, we travelled by underground
yeah.
and walked. We didn't go in any
we
cabs.
didn't, did we? Well, I can't remember, to be fair.
No.
Walk
You-
through the streets.
And what-
If you think it's weird that I keep saying I don't remember, I have short-term memory loss. So when my head was, I have a, what is it now? God's sake, I had a gash at the back of my head. I had to have 10 staples in the back of my head. I remember everything up until that point, but everything after that is very short. So if someone says to me, "Oh yeah, we went there," I'm like, "Oh yeah, I don't remember." I do not remember. It's really strange. Even the lead up to when we got married, everything, I remember it because I can see it. That's how I know it physically happened. But I actually don't remember a lot of things. So that's why I'm like, "Oh, okay, did we? That's fine." But I think, I don't know if it's because I blocked a lot of it out and I'm used to just blocking things out and just getting on with things.
But you were such a different person. Hopefully you can see
Yeah.
that in the film. But
Yeah.
But you were quite frightened of the road, the streets.
That's what I remember.
Yeah, I remember linking into
yeah.
you, like holding on to you, and it was quite scary. I'm not gonna lie, but you know I did it for the film.
The story certainly shows you growing in confidence over those years. It's really lovely to see. Let's have another question. Yes.
Absolutely amazing, Shawn. First of all, what's going on in life, Shawn, now? What are your sort of plans for the future?
So I want another baby.
Wow.
Just gonna put it out there, I do. So I want to obviously.
Hope that's not the first time you've actually told him that he's just
No. He knows. I did my first motivational talk literally yesterday in a school in Bromley. I did 6 classes back to back. Absolutely loved it. So I want to continue with speaking in classes. I'm doing a lot of modelling, and yeah, I'm just, you know, killing it. Yeah.
She also acted with Judi Dench. You have to keep an eye on that on TV. Oscar now.
Another
I am
question,
joking.
please. Yes, Rich.
Filmmakers, first time seeing the film, I followed you along a lot of the journey.
What do you mean follow me? I used to share a flat with this guy. Filmmakers that I ever just met today. Yeah, we had a flat on Harbour Road.
stitched you right up there.
But first time seeing the full thing, and Shawn, you're an inspiration. And it's an amazing achievement to create something like this, so, you know, that's up to you. What are your hopes for the film, and where do you want to take it, and what do you ideally see?
Good question. Well, we want as many people to see it as possible. Ideally, we'd like to get it on TV. We've got another showing planned for Birmingham. We've not got the date set yet, but it's going to be at the Birmingham Mac, which is another cinema run. Possibly another showing back here. We hope in the not too distant future.
How many people? Is this the first documentary you've seen in the cinema? Put your hand up if it is. Yeah. So normally it's Netflix, Amazon Prime, or those kind of places, which are notoriously difficult to get into. But yeah, what we spoke at the beginning about Nick being part of the Phoenix there, they're building 2 new screens to accommodate local filmmakers. So this shouldn't be like an anomalous thing that happens every so many years. It could be something that happens regularly. And then when the world's changed, you know, when we started, I sound like old grandparents now. When we started, there was no YouTube, there wasn't really much broadband, and we used to deliver DVDs flick books and a guy playing the piano from the cinema. But now you don't have to be in London. You can broadcast anywhere. You can be anywhere in the country and be sending stuff to other people. So this is a time for Leicester filmmakers or filmmakers in areas that are not, London, Bristol, Manchester, Liverpool. But at the moment, our idea is to get it seen by as many people as possible, because that's how you make things change. And hopefully, we'd like to show this in New York. It's a bit more difficult legally and going over there and everything else. But I think if you can imagine an audience of New York people, New York citizens, watching it and then going out, and all the traffic going by and the sounds and all the things, and just thinking a bit, looking around and thinking, maybe taxis should have £2 million public liability if Matt, the cameraman, has to have 10 million to fly his very light drone, or his little camera. Hopefully that would happen, and then maybe we can change things over there.
Okay, thank you. Yes. Let's see who's next.
Can I just quickly say something? I'm really, really sorry.
Yes, you may.
We need to go because my parking's going to run.
Yeah, we're not going to pay for that.
I just want to say thank you so much for sharing this with everybody. You're a true inspiration. I love you from the bottom of my heart, even though you've ruined my makeup.
Well, I actually ruined your honeymoon, didn't I? So the day before I went to New York, I went to Paige's wedding. She was on her honeymoon, and sorry about that.
You still owe me.
Absolutely.
And thank you for you guys. It was absolutely
Thanks for coming.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming.
Love you. Thank you so much.
Brilliant. Let's just do 2 more questions. So, yes, sir.
Question for Wayne. With the when you do the interviews, what either shocked you or surprised you the most in the questions and the answers?
I think the biggest thing really was with the driver when I asked him, but when he started going off on a rant about having a divorce and his parents didn't speak to him for a couple of days or whatever it was that he said, and I said, don't you think that's sort of, fair? I mean, it's actually not fair. That's not equitable at all. But for him to go in, and then when he said, what's worth more, a family or a leg or whatever it is that he says. I felt like he'd slapped me across the face, to be honest, when he said it. So I would say that's the most shocking. And then probably the other most difficult interview to actually do and to try and get anywhere near him was the bald-headed guy, the Fernando Mateo.
Just wiped him from your memory. You can't remember his name, can you?
Fernando Mateo, the taxi and limousine, the union guy. Yeah, exactly. It was literally talking to somebody from Sopranos. It was in a tiny little private cinema that probably had 6 seats in it. It was in the Trump building as well, in a basement. I lost my phone there as well. I'm convinced he nicked it. And I just could not really pin him down. I just had to let him talk. I basically just had to keep asking questions. But he was really, really tricky. I'd say those 2. But most of the other ones, lawyers and different people. And then the other ones are difficult from a different point of view, like having to interview people. I mean, Dana Lerner, that's in the film, that lost a little boy, but like Matt said, there was 2 or 3 other people that we spope to that lost people.
We did, we were crying while we were filming it.
Some of them were absolutely heartbreaking to do. So they were tricky as well. But from a filmmaker point of view and trying to get people, it was the driver and the union boss, and I think that kind of shows in the film really.
Thank you. Just one more question, please. Yes, Anna.
In terms of interviews, how long it took you to set up the meetings with people, and how long you need to stay in New York to actually get the material that you want?
It was really, really dependent, because a lot of these things, we were lucky to actually get to speak to them, like people like the driver, for example. So you just had to say, if he said he's got half an hour or 15 minutes or an hour or whatever it was, then that's what we would have. And when we went to, because this whole thing, and we've alluded to it, we haven't actually said, the whole thing was completely self-funded. We didn't get commission to do this. So, you know, we had to use the projects to kind of fund it. So we funded 2 trips to New York, and those trips we were there, I think, the maximum of a week for each one, wasn't it? Was it?
Yeah, and we walked 11 miles.
Yeah, on one day we did.
Get the camera equipment.
But basically, because we were doing that, we had to schedule in as many things as possible. So usually, I mean, there wasn't any downtime, and obviously we had to factor in time to get cutaways and things of the city and different bits and pieces. And to be fair, Matt usually just got up stupidly early and went and got them himself before I even got up. But then we'd have to go around, and obviously New York's massive, and then we had the whole thing about, oh, this doesn't look very far on the map. Oh no, it's about an hour and a half away. But yeah, so it was like, so we'd often do like, I don't know, 5, 6, sometimes more interviews in a day, and then other days we might only have 2. The one I remember is the one that we did after Leicester won the Premier League, and
yeah, we were the most unprofessional we've ever been. But
he's not in the film, though, to be fair.
No, we did an interview after we'd had a few drinks watching. We went to
the New York Foxes.
New York Foxes. There's a pub in New York City that the Leicester supporters of New York go to. And so obviously we were out there, and it was when we were winning the.
Leicester supporters of New York.
Yeah. Well, yeah, they're actually the people that run it are actually Leicester City supporters, and they've run this football bar. It's massive, and
so I let Wayne have a few drinks.
Yeah, he did actually. We put the interview back,
and then we went off and filmed the last interview of the day. But that was the only time we really.
And I did need the long boom pole because I stunk of alcohol, and I was such a. Away.
Speaking of a few drinks, yes, I just want you to tell us what's happening next, and then we'll give Shawn the final
thing to lead to.
Okay, so we have a little after show party at the Exchange. You know the Exchange downstairs. The Exchange, like a flat iron building
opposite the curve.
Opposite the curve. You're more than welcome to come and join us for a few drinks, and you know there's been a lot of crying and there's been a lot of laughter, but we can probably relax and have a chat and unwind a little bit. So that's after this. We'll have to tidy a few things away, but we'll meet you over there, and we'd love to see you all. But thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Shawn, would you like to say anything else?
No, I just want to say thank you so much for coming. Like I said, I didn't even know if this was ever going to be possible for everyone I know and love to be able to witness what you guys have done. So I just feel so proud that we all get to experience this together, and honestly I can't thank you enough for taking the time out of your Friday to come and be with us. So just thank you.